Alrighty, so it's time to do the preview of the 8 games that is going to be happening tomorrow. Well, the video that I just did a moment ago, which looked at the review of the 3 games that happened on Tuesday action, is still uploading on my channel. And let us actually begin straight away by talking about Atlanta United taking on FC Cincinnati, which this game will start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. And in some way, this is a trap game for Atlanta United because we know that they have a big playoff 6-pointer against DC United over the weekend, and that could be a matchup depending on how the result will go from this midweek action. We'll see one team that is above the red line and one team that is below the red line, and whoever wins that match potentially will either get themselves back above the red line, or also push themselves above the red line. But in order for that to be the case, and for Atlanta, if they're going to be having a situation where maybe they could actually find themselves above the red line heading into that big game against DC over the weekend, they need to first take care of business against FC Cincinnati, who has a record of 4-8-10. Although, one thing we know about this time of the season, and especially when you have a team that is chasing for playoffs or maybe chasing for seeding, and you're playing against a lowly opposition that pretty much is in see you next season mode, yeah, they're definitely going to play you hard. And I'm pretty sure FC Cincinnati, who definitely is coming into this game with a lot of confidence after they're finally getting their first ever home win at TKO Stadium by winning 2-0 against TFC, you definitely want to play some spoiler in this one. And in terms of the last 5 head-to-head match, at least what we see, FC Cincinnati has at times played Atlanta tough. They were able to get a 1-1 draw against Atlanta the last time both of these teams met, before Atlanta did win 2-0 against FC Cincinnati. But then FC Cincinnati was able to go on the road and win 1-0 against Atlanta, before it was a 2-1 win that Atlanta has against FC Cincinnati, and then Atlanta winning 2-0 against FC Cincinnati. But obviously, I'm pretty sure Gonzalo Pineda will kind of remind his team that, as much as they're looking forward to that big game against DC United, they have to take care of business in this game. And in some way, I think he would even motivate the team by saying that if they can win this game, they can definitely get themselves above the red line, because, if DC does lose to Chicago, then Atlanta would go above the red line, and DC will find themselves below the red line. Speaking of DC United, moving on into the next match, they're going to be playing against the Chicago Fire, who is another team that, just like what I said about FC Cincinnati, is a team that kind of is starting to be in see you next season mode. I mean, Chicago still kind of has an outside chance of making the playoffs, but it is very unlikely unless they pull off a major, incredible second half resurgence and go on a long unbeaten run, which, knowing the Chicago Fire, yeah, that seems like it's probably not going to happen, consider how inconsistent they've been in the past couple of years. But yeah, they're going to be on the road in this game and also finish their 5-game road trip against DC United, as this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. DC United has a 9-4-10 record, while Chicago has a 6-5-12 record. DC, of course, drew 1-1 against the Red Bulls in the Atlantic Cup, while the Fire, of course, lost 2-0 against Sporting KC on the road. And in terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was a 2-2 draw between both of these teams, before DC winning 1-0 against the Chicago Fire. The Fire did win 2-1 against DC, before it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams, and then it was an incredible 3-3 draw between both these teams to wrap up the last 5 head-to-head meeting. But, I'm going to say the same thing about DC, the same way I said about Atlanta. They cannot just take this game lightly and just say that this is automatic 3 points, because, again, Chicago is going to definitely try to play spoiler, and they're going to try to make her and Sada Man work hard for this victory. But there's no doubt that they're, knowing the fact that there's a couple of teams behind them that have been relatively red hot, and in fact, I think one of those teams have kind of already leapfrogged them in terms of them dropping now down to 7th place. That is Inter Miami, after them getting the win. They definitely want to get themselves a win in this game to get themselves back into 6th place, and maybe just a little bit more leeway between themselves and the red line. I mean, to be honest, it's not really much of a leeway because when you look at the standing wise, it is just so tight in terms of the race right now for the playoff spot. I mean, it's almost like it's replicating of what we saw in the Western Conference playoff race, where I talked about many times the Western Conference playoff race has been intense. It started to be intense in the Eastern Conference with the ways that there are some teams that is around that bubble that have been on a bit of a hot streak, especially below the red line. And that does put a lot of pressure on those teams that is above the red line to keep getting points so that they don't slide down and be overtaken by the team that is red hot, that is currently below the red line. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be Orlando and Montreal. So, because of the fact that Miami, of course, got the win against TFC, that means Montreal, unfortunately, has the bad honor of now moving below the red line, and they're going to be playing against Orlando City in this game. And again, they're another team that hopefully get a win in this one so that they can get themselves back above the red line. But it's not going to be easy because they're going to be playing against an Orlando City side that you think this probably is a must-win for them if they want to keep themselves in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference, and I'll talk about why exactly that is the case in a moment. But this game will also start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Orlando City, of course, lost 3-0 on the road against Atlanta United away, which is a game that I'm pretty sure they definitely do not want to remember. I mean, that was one of the worst games that Oscar Pereira men have played this season. While Montreal, they suffer a 1-0 loss to Nashville. Actually, not on the road. They were actually playing at home, and they lost 1-0 to Nashville, and probably are lucky the fact that they lost 1-0 against Nashville. I mean, if it wasn't for their goalkeeper James Pentemis keeping them in the game as long as possible, they probably could have lost 3 or 4-0 against Nashville because of how Nashville was really dominating that game. And now the record is at 8-7-8. The last 5 head-to-head matches, well, both of these teams met earlier this season. It was Orlando winning 1-0 on the road before Orlando winning 1-0 against Montreal, this time at home. Then Orlando, of course, winning 3-0 on the road against Montreal before Montreal did win 3-1 against Orlando City. And then Montreal, of course, winning 2-0 on the road against Orlando City. But you got to keep in mind, those two games that I mentioned in the latter part of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, that was pre-Oscar Pereira era. It is pretty clear that Oscar Pereira has definitely figured out Montreal, and seems like his team loves to play against Montreal in these last couple of matchups. And as I said, it's big the fact that they need to get a win in this game, and it's almost like a must-win situation if they want to keep themselves to try to maybe get the top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference. Because when you look at their schedule and their next couple opponent, they got to play against New England on the road. They have to play Nashville on the road. I mean, it is going to get really, really tough. I mean, they're going to be going through a gauntlet of a run. And knowing the fact that in the last game when they played a relatively good team that is Atlanta United, and they just completely flop in that game, yeah, they know that they need to win this one to maybe give them some security. The fact that they can get themselves a little bit further away in terms of dropping below the top 4 spot. Because the reason why I mentioned how it's important for Orlando City to remain in the top 4 is because top 4 is where you get home field advantage, at least one, for your first round of the playoffs, and that could be a really big thing as we head to the playoffs not long after this midweek action. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be Sporting KC versus Minnesota. So speaking of gauntlet, the Loons are continue running this gauntlet where they're kind of in the midst of it, where not only the fact that they have to play against Seattle just a couple of days ago, which I said it was an automatic loss. Indeed it was. But now they're going to have to play against SKC, and then just a couple of days later they have to play against the Galaxy at home, which you would think it would be the less gauntlet of a matchup. But the Loons did lose to the Galaxy at home earlier this season, and also as I remind you that the Loons have never beaten Sporting KC at Children's Mercy Park in the regular season. Yeah, it's gonna be definitely a tough game, and it's another game where I definitely do not have a lot of about this team. Now, this game will start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Sporting KC got a much-needed 2-0 win against Chicago at home, while Minnesota, as I mentioned, losing 1-0 to Seattle. Last 5 head-to-head matchup, both of these teams met earlier this season, and it was a frustrating 0-0 draw for Minnesota against Sporting KC because they had a man up for pretty much large part of that match, but they couldn't find that clinical finishing to score the goal to get all 3 points. But before that, in the playoffs last year and in the second round of the Western Conference playoff, Minnesota finally get their first win at Children's Mercy Park by winning 3-0 again Sporting KC. But before that, it was a 1-0 win that Sporting KC had against Minnesota, a 2-1 road win that Sporting KC had against Minnesota, before the Loons did get a 2-1 win against SKC, but this one's not a road game, as this was actually back in the MLS is Back tournament. But yeah, this is a game that, again, I don't have a lot of confidence for the Loons to able to get points. I mean, I feel like if they can get a point out of this game, it would be good. But also, it depends on, I think the way that I see this game for the Loons, and if there's any shots that they can maybe get a win in this game, they need Reynoso and Lod back in this game, and I don't know if either of those players is going to be back in this team, because it's clear that when you look at this attack without those guys, this attack is as stale as it gets. And against a Sporting KC team that, well, yes, they haven't been looking that good, and even with the 2-0 win that they have against the Chicago Fire, it wasn't kind of convincing in some way, and especially they kind of had to hold on to dear life in the second half. Yeah, even that, this is still a very dangerous team, and a team that is trying to finish top spot in the Western Conference this season. Yeah, it's not going to be an easy task, and not to mention the fact that besides that one win that they had in the playoffs, I mean, Children's Mercy Park has literally been a house of horror for the Loons, and they have never been able to get points on the road against Sporting KC besides that playoff matchup. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, it's going to be Austin FC versus LAFC. So this is another matchup where, when you have a team that have playoff aspiration and playing against a team that are pretty much in see you next season mode, yeah, the team that has playoff aspiration has got to be a little bit careful coming into this game. And in this case, for LAFC, they started to find their groove a little bit after they were able to win 3-2 against RSL, and they have now won back-to-back games after that long winless run that they had to get themselves drop all the way back down below the red line. But now they have an 8-6-9 record and are in the doorstep of potentially going back above the red line. Whereas they're playing against an Austin FC side that, yeah, they are really struggling. They have lost 6 out of their last 7 games. And it's not just, like, the issue for Austin isn't just the fact that they can't score. Now the issue for this team is that they can't defend. And I hate to say this, but this has started to look like an FC Cincinnati side from the inaugural season. And I always don't want to compare new expansion team to that FC Cincinnati side, because I still think that side was still considered one, if not the worst expansion team we have ever seen in MLS history. But for Austin, it started to kind of look like that, with this defense really started to fall apart in these last couple of games. And the defense is kind of the reason why, at least in some way, they have been in a lot of these games. But now the fact that the defense has started to go completely the opposite direction, and not to mention the team that has already started to already is struggling to score goals. Yeah, there's no doubt that they are just in a complete free fall right now. But that being said, they do have a chance to maybe play a little bit spoiler in this one, like I mentioned. By the way, this game, of course, will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. And then the only head-to-head meeting between both of these teams was LAFC winning 2-0 against Austin FC. But like I said, even though this team is not doing very well, I still gotta give a lot of credit to this Austin fan base, where they're still supporting this team, and especially the very faithful in the supporter group. They are still supporting this team to the end. And it's, even though I know teams have been able to walk into Q2 Stadium and able to get wins, it's still not an easy environment to play, especially in front of a hostile crowd. And for LAFC, if they want to get a win. I'm pretty sure they're going to have to earn it in this one because, again, Austin, I feel like they're going to play LAFC really hard and also maybe are looking to try to get some revenge after what happened in the first ever meeting when Austin had a couple of chances to potentially win that one, but ultimately giving up two goals late to lose 2-0 in that one. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Portland Timbers taking on the Colorado Rapids. So this game, of course, will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. The Timbers have a record of 10-3-10, but, Portland, ever since that disastrous week that they had where, that was the week that they lost the Cascadia Derby 6-2, drew 1-1 against Sporting KC, and then losing to Austin on the road again. They have recovered well ever since that run. They have won three in a row coming into this game against the Colorado Rapids, but there's no doubt that this is probably the toughest test that they have compared to the last three opponents that they have faced, because this is a Rapids team that is red hot right now. I mean, yes, they did draw 1-1 against the Galaxy in the last match, but their unbeaten run is now at 8 games, and I believe they have now the longest active unbeaten run in MLS and are really trying to chase to get that top spot in the Western Conference. Now, in terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, the last time both of these teams play against each other, Colorado got the win. They won 1-0 against the Timbers at Providence Park before it was a 2-2 draw between both of these teams. And then, of course, there was a matchup that I definitely will never forget, which is the Snow Classico between the Rapids and the Timbers a couple of years ago. It was a free draw in that one. Then the Timbers, of course, were able to win 2-0 against the Rapids before it was a 3-2 win on the road that the Timbers had against the Colorado Rapids. But this was before when the Colorado Rapids was the Colorado Rapids that we know that is a really good team, and also the team before Robin Fraser took over this team. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very tough task for the Timbers if they can get points. But, there's one thing that you got to give a lot of credit to what this Portland team and what Giovanni Savarese has done to this team has really kind of turned things around after that disaster week. Although that, again, has maybe they show another example of how a Cascadia Derby win is so important. I mean, I can't stop emphasizing how, it just feels like anytime when a team wins the Cascadia Derby, they tend to not only get a big win over their rival, but it can really accelerate their season. And right now, the Timbers is started to having that effect where ever since that big win against the Seattle Sounders, they have now got 2 impressive wins in a row and have really now got themselves back above the red line and kind of started to pull away and get themselves in a bit more kind of a comfort area to be staying away from being close from that playoff red line in the Western Conference. But like I said, this is no doubt probably the toughest task that they has besides playing the Seattle Sounders, where they're playing a Rapids team that has been red hot lately. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 2 games that's going to be happening in terms of the midweek action of match week number 25. So one thing I forgot to mention in terms of these Wednesday games to finish off the midweek action of match week number 25 is that a lot of these games are actually kicking off relatively late, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of West Coast game, and we finish off with both of these games that is going to be late kickoff, with the first one between the Galaxy versus the Houston Dynamo that's going to be starting at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. And I think the only good news is, at least with these late West Coast kickoff, it's at least not going to be involving a team that is in the Eastern Conference, and I think when you have those kind of matchup, it must suck for those Eastern Conference team where you have to kind of stay up very late, especially in the middle of the week, to watch your team play because they're playing against a West Coast opponent. But it's just not going to be the case, at least for this week. Although for Houston fans, they'll kind of be very frustrated because they have to stay up until like 9:30 to watch their team play. But that being said, I think they also have a really late kickoff a couple of weeks from now. They play against FC Dallas, so maybe that's kind of a preparation of the fact that they might have to stay up late to, of course, watch their team play. But in terms of this game between the Galaxy versus Houston, well, anytime when I talk about how both of these teams play against each other, this always seems to be a game where if you're a Galaxy fan, yeah, you must hate the fact that this game has to take place because as much as Houston has been really bad this season, they always find a way to beat the Galaxy, and it seems like the Galaxy kryptonite has always been this Houston Dynamo team, and really for these past couple of years, the Dynamo has really caused a lot of pain to this Galaxy team. But in terms of coming into this matchup, the Galaxy are fresh off of a good 1-1 draw against the Colorado Rapids on the road, while the Dynamo, they must feel a lot of confidence and really a huge weight off their shoulder after finally snapping a 16-game winless run by winning 3-0 against Austin FC at home. In terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, as I mentioned, of why exactly the Dynamo has caused a lot of pain to the Galaxy, well, the last time both of these teams met each other, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. Before it was another 1-1 draw, and then the Dynamo winning 4-2 against the Galaxy. The Galaxy did win 2-1 against Houston, but the Dynamo did win 3-2 against the Galaxy, and I think that was the game that basically means that the Galaxy would miss the playoffs that season. I mean, yeah, this team has always caused pain to this Galaxy team, and I won't be surprised with the way that, I talked about before with this Dynamo team where, I knew eventually they were going to win at least one more game before the end of the season, even in this mammoth winless run that they had. But anytime when you have a team that has finally ended this mammoth winless run that they not only feel like they have that weight off their shoulder, but now they can really play with some confidence. And in some way, with what I said about how when you are facing against a team that is already in see you next season mode, those are all sometimes could be the most dangerous team to play because they really have nothing to lose. And I think Houston is going to be playing like they have nothing to lose, and that they're looking to try to get another win in their second win in a row against the Galaxy, and maybe even spoil the Galaxy chance of maybe finishing in the top 4 of the Western Conference. So yeah, if you want to ask me about this weekend in terms of what's a game where there could be an upset, and one that I wouldn't be surprised if it become an upset, it's this one. I won't be surprised if the Dynamo can maybe get a point or even pull off even a bigger upset by getting all 3 points against the Galaxy in this one, because for whatever reason, this team has always been the biggest nemesis for the Galaxy, at least for these past couple of years. But now moving on into the last match on this board is none other than the game that I'm going to be attending tomorrow. And as I said, this is probably the biggest game in terms of the midweek action between the San Jose Earthquakes and RSL, because this is virtually a playoff 6-pointer. Like, Real Salt Lake is literally just above the red line right now, while the Quakes, they, even though they're now find themselves in 11th place, they're only 3 points from getting themselves above the red line. And although, they will need a lot of things to go right for them to maybe find themselves above the red line by the end of the night, it will definitely help their cases if they can, of course, get a win against this RSL team that, they're coming off of a 3-2 loss against LAFC on the road, and they also have a relatively short week too, because, they play not only on Sunday, but they play very late into Sunday night, and they only have 3 days to prepare for this. Whereas for the Quakes, yes, they did go on a road trip and drew 1-1 against FC Dallas in a game that, it's kind of a meh resort. I mean, it could be worse that the Quakes could get 0 points against a team that they might be fighting for playoffs, but I kind of feel like they should have got free. They should have maybe come away with 3 points, especially they have a good record against FC Dallas. But that being said, this is another good opportunity for the Quakes to get 3 points against a team that they actually have a really good record against them in the last couple of matchups. Because the last time both of these teams met each other, the Quakes, of course, were able to win 2-1 on the road against RSL. Before it was a 2-0 win that the Quakes have against RSL. The Quakes then win 5-2 against RSL in that MLS back round of 16 matchup. RSL did win 1-0 against the Quakes, but the Quakes also did win 1-0 against Real Salt Lake. And in fact, it's been a long time since I remember the Quakes actually lost to RSL at home. So, I'm hoping past history will favor the Quakes coming into this game. But one thing I am going to be a little bit worried about this team is that I'm really hoping this offense can score some goals and do just enough to win this one, because the biggest issue I have with this team and why I feel like first of all, we still don't know the health of Jeremy Abovisi, and it seems like he probably has indeed suffered a concussion, and there's no timeline of how long he's going to be out. But with him being out, there's got to be somebody on that attack that has to step up, and the fact that there isn't really a lot of guys that can step up on this team, that makes me worry, because if this team can't score, they're not going to win a lot of games. I mean, it doesn't matter how good this defense is, which this defense has been really good during this 12-game stretch, where I think they haven't even given up more than one goal during this 10-game stretch. But it doesn't matter if you have a good defense when you can't score goals. And right now, this team this team really started to remind me of the Minnesota United team of this season, where it's a team that I get super frustrated because of the fact that, yes, I know they have a good defense, but they can't score because nobody on that attack is able to score. And quite frankly, I mean, it seems like both the Quakes and the Loons are trying to really makes me feel like I am supporting both of these teams by basically having both of these teams having the same problem right now, which is both of these teams are struggling in terms of goal scoring. But hey, at least they have a good defense to maybe keep shut out every single game. But yeah, for this game, they have to. I'm really hoping something can go well, and that hopefully this offense that has been overdue in terms of having a big game can actually have a big game in this one, because like I said, it is a playoff 6-pointer, and in some way it's kind of a must-win game for the Quakes, knowing the fact that the next game that they have against Austin FC on the road, that's also another game that could be a must-win, especially if they want to get themselves to be staying in the race of potentially making the playoffs in the Western Conference. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of the 8 games that's going to be happening tomorrow. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 8 games? And as always, let me know in the comments your prediction for all 8 games that is going to be happening tomorrow. Oh, by the way, I forgot that there's also one more game that is not actually an MLS game, but it's a very important game that I'm going to be doing a review right after when I get home from watching this game between the Quakes and RSL, is the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal between the Philadelphia Union versus Club America, because again, that will be a game that can but really determine whether or not if it's going to be another frustrating CCL campaign where no MLS team is going to make it to the final. And yeah, let's just hope maybe the Union can do what LAFC did a couple of years ago, able to overcome a 2-0 deficit in the first leg in Mexico and able to win 3-0 at home. But we shall see whether that's going to be the case, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that game while I'm watching this one between the Quakes and RSL at the stadium. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.